welcome to session 5 of Unit 5. And in this session, we will be looking at the discovery method of teaching physics. My name is Patrick Ejie. Now, by the end of this session, you should be able to explain the nature of discovery teaching, explain what is required of the student in discovery method, and explain the role of the teacher in discovery method of teaching. Now let's look at the nature of discovery method. So teaching by discovery basically requires students to carry out the major parts of the learning activity. So anytime we are using the discovery method of teaching, then it means that in this teaching method too, the learner or the student is supposed to do most of the learning activities. In essence, or in other words, the teacher must ensure that the instruction is learner focused or learner centered. And so the teacher must lead students to organize what they are learning in order to discover some order and connections between the different parts of what is being learned. So because they are going to, or your learners are going to do majority of the activities, all that the teacher you will do is to lead the students to organize what they are learning. So in discovery learning, the teacher, you are a facilitator, you are a guide to the learners, and you must assist your learners in order to transfer this order for use in different situations. So you have led your learners to organize how they are to make a discovery. Now, once you have led them to do this, the next thing is to assist them to transfer this order to different situations. And Jerome Bruner is one of the greatest supporters of this method. And to him, he insists that activities in discovery learning are a necessary condition for learning the techniques of problem solving and for transforming information for better use. And this method, according to Bruner, is necessary because it enables learners not just to learn, but they learn how to learn. And what do we mean by learners learning how to learn? It means that your students learn how to now look for information on their own. And so as a teacher, you must provide that kind of guidance, that assistance, that will cause your learners to learn how to learn. That will help your learners to learn how to look for information to a problem on their own. Now, what are the steps involved in using discovery method of teaching? And according to Farrant, 1980, he suggested 10 steps that any teacher may go through with a class in learning by discovery. So according to Farrant, anytime you want to use the discovery method of teaching, then you must go through these 10 steps. And these steps are, first of all, define the problems to be investigated. So let your learners know the problem. Then you must provide or clarify the objective. So once you provide an objective for your lesson, you must make a clarification as to what your objectives mean or what your objectives sought to measure. And you must relate the study to what is known or to some real-life problem. Once you're able to do this, it will heighten students' interest, and it is also able to sustain this interest in the lesson. And consider any related factors, any other factors that are likely to help them achieve the objectives that have been set for the lesson. And propose hypotheses or guesses of how the problem may be tackled. So once there are hypotheses, proposed guesses has been made, then at least students have that sense of direction that we can follow this direction and it is likely we can achieve the set objective. Collect information to test the guesses or suggested lines of action or attack. So once you have proposed hypothesis, you must now collect information to test the hypothesis. And then evaluate and organize the data or information that your learners have assembled and interpret their findings. So you must help your learners to interpret their findings. They should be able to draw conclusions and finally suggest what should be done next. So according to Farrant, as a teacher, anytime you want to use the discovery method of teaching, then you should be able to go through these 10 steps with your learners. Now, what is the role of the teacher in discovery method of teaching? And Farrant proposed 10 steps that a teacher you can follow through with your learners anytime you want to use the discovery method of teaching. And so, what the students does in these steps is to learn and practice some or all of the skills of investigation that are used by scientists. And we must understand that learning these skills, the skills of problem solving, the skills of creativity, the skills of objectivity, all these skills are not just learned in a day. It takes time. So as a teacher, you must take note of that. And for that reason, you should begin to lay the foundation for such valuable skills by providing an enabling environment. And your role in guiding your learners whenever you are using the discovery method is in 4 basic areas. So we know that in discovery, you are to facilitate the lesson. You are to provide conditions that will make learning happen, conditions that will help learners to obtain or acquire information on their own. They learn how to learn. They learn how to find information on their own. And in doing this, you have 4 main roles that you play. So, according to Farrant 1980, your facilitation is in 4 areas, like we mentioned earlier. And the first role is that as a teacher, using the discovery method of teaching, you must ensure that your objectives are clear to the students. Your objectives are useful and your objectives are capable of being achieved by students. Don't set unrealistic objectives for your learners. Your objectives must be smart. They must be specific. They should be measurable. They should be achievable, realistic, and time-bound. This should be the kind of objective that you should set anytime you are using the discovery method of learning. And your second role has to do with the method. And the methods that you use should be methods that will stimulate interest and imagination, methods that will encourage active participation and responding by students. Ensure that your learners become active participants during the teaching learning process. Methods that encourage creativity, methods that encourage problem solving. Ensure that your methods are flexible and they recognize different interests of students and varying spans of attention. So in methods, you must ensure that all these are being provided for your learning. And your next role is that you, the teacher, you must act in a manner that will help your students or your learners learn how to learn. They should be able to learn how to obtain information on their own. You must act in a manner that will permit your learners to choose different ways of working. Act in a manner that will focus students' attention on materials from which they can make their discoveries. This is one of your roles. And so, in discovery method of teaching, the way in which you act should be able to provide these opportunities to your learners. And the final role is that the material that you provide for your learners to use must be readily available and in sufficient quantity. So any materials you may want them to use, ensure that they are available and the quantity, it can also be supplied to all groups or all individuals in the class. Your materials should be stimulating to the students and they should be well organized and tidily stored. Now, students, in this session, we look at the discovery method of teaching and the purpose for using this teaching method. Now, as we bring this session to an end, let us have this as a take home. What is discovery learning? And what are the principal roles of the teacher in discovery learning?